Okay, hello, Ryan, Hannah, Andrew, my nemesis, Rose, Lexi. I have to shout out to the people I can actually see first because it's nice to see you. Chanel. Okay. To gather myself. I don't think it should be 37 degrees outside in the end of April. Uh, but the sun is shining, and I'll take that. Okay, so we're going to continue our discussion of Malcolm X from last time, um, and then go on to talk about the Meredith March and the Eyes on the Prize episode. The time has come, and the advent of the Black Power slogan. Um, so we'll see how it goes. So were there any questions about last time that people want to put on the table uh, before we commence? So uh, we're we want to continue to be mindful of what I said at the beginning of the last class, which is uh, Malcolm X's significance. He has a significance in his own right, but particularly for our purpose, purposes in studying the civil rights movement and these last years of the civil rights movement, the influence of Malcolm X, the effect of his ideas, uh, the the resonance of the questions that he poses are of the greatest import in the context of our class. So the reading and the film make an argument about Malcolm X, the changes in Malcolm X. Malcolm X himself makes an argument about his rejection of the white man is the devil thesis, uh, and then I make one. I began that last time, or I articulated some of that last time, in the sense that I believe that Malcolm X changes because he is seeing proof laid on the ground that there are possibilities to bring about change in America, change for better for better in America, as far as Black people is concerned, through struggle, and so that his ultimate position is uh, offering his ambition of creating a militant uh, 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 complement to the civil rights movement, but believing in the possibility of reform, believing in the efficacy of political action. So the OAAU is organizing politically, organizing African Americans to vote in Harlem, where it's centered. So as I see it, it's not a matter of a kind of a personal spiritual epiphany. Uh, uh, I'm in the Holy Land, and I see blonde Muslims, and that turns me inside out, or that erases uh, uh, all that I've learned, or all that Elijah Muhammad's taught me. I think it's a more straight. What we're talking about is Malcolm X's political education, uh, and as opposed to a thing that is primarily spiritual. So I'm going to try something now. Everyone can hear me? Okay. Thank you, Sarah. So this is the clip I sent out to you. Can you see it on the steps? Okay, so let me just play that for you and
Excuse me, Mr. X. Hi. I've read some of your speeches, and I honestly believe that a lot of what you have to say is true. And I'm a good person in spite of what my ancestors did. I wanted to ask you, what can a white person like myself, who isn't prejudiced, what can I do to help you and further your cause?
Nothing.
it's so cold.
My high school was a black ghetto.
So there that is, and every time I watch that, I chuckle because in some ways it's just funny. It's just funny, right? Now, why do I think it's funny? I don't know. You know, I wrote a book about Booker T. Washington, who's all about black people and white people getting together, which means black people paying a lot of attention to Euro-American feelings. So if we would imagine that situation of a young Euro-American woman approaching Booker T. Washington when he's on his way to give a speech somewhere or to an important meeting, we might imagine Booker T. Washington stopping stopping what he's doing, throwing aside his agenda, and listening in a very sympathetic way to the woman. Yes. Oh well, miss, where are you from? What is your family's name? This is the work that we do in Tuskegee. Do you have your checkbook with you? Yes? Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Chanel, for your smiles. That's the kind of pragmatics of Booker T. Washington's advocacy of good race relations. Any white person is of the utmost importance. It's a single Euro-American person is of greater importance than, say, the gathering of black people that you're going to, because that white support, in a pragmatic way, is a part of what helps the Washington's enterprise go. But in a symbolic way, it is sufficient proof that the races are coming together for progress. So that Malcolm X that you see in that stage of his life, so this is 63 and before, that Malcolm X is saying, look, this individual person is merely she's an impediment to me getting on my way of teaching of expounding upon the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, and doing what we're doing, which is preparing the so-called American Negro for his salvation through the intervention of God at some future point. So if you think of the kinds of rationalizations for the rationalizations that come from Malcolm X's brothers after he's in the time of the trouble, and then after he's assassinated, where they'll say things, and this is in Malcolm X Make It Plain, where they'll say things like, "We were doing important work. We had the work that we were doing, and that work was cleaning black people up and saving their souls and so on." That's a part of the urgency of Malcolm X in this period being about his business. That's a part of his priorities, which are not to make this young Euro-American woman feel better. The urgency of what they're doing, the importance of what they're doing. But what I'm arguing is, the broader argument that I'm making about this is that Malcolm X is coming to see the new possibilities through the freedom struggle on the one hand, and seeing the limitations of Elijah Muhammad's program on the other hand. So the criticism of the Nation of Islam on the streets of Harlem is, well, they talk a good game, but they don't do anything. They don't do anything. So you don't have the Nation of Islam engaging in militant action, right? They have their meetings, they have their conventions. They are inward focused. And in the times when they're not together, what are they doing? Well, they're doing the same thing other African Americans are doing, except they're not drinking, they're not engaged in vice. Not to say that all African Americans are doing that, but that's one thing that they're not doing. They obey the laws. They obey the white man's laws, which means they walk down streets, they ride on buses, they go into places of commerce and public accommodation. They go to work, and they don't disturb the waters. They don't disturb the peace. So the Nation of Islam promises, with its the white man is the devil, and so he can't change. So we turn our minds, our eyes away from him. We turn our souls to what we have together. My point about this is that Malcolm X sees the fundamental conservatism of that position. It is seeking to conserve what they have within the Nation of Islam. But he is agitated by the idea that you can get more by turning outward. You can get more. You can advance the cause of African American through other means. So let's talk about. Let me offer you the opportunity to speak about that scene there that I just shown you, about what I've said about Malcolm X within the Nation of Islam, the Nation of Islam itself, the white man is the devil idea. Thoughts or questions about that? Hannah, yes.
I feel like it's an example of kind of what you were just saying with Malcolm X relying more heavily on the Nation of Islam in not accepting the outside or not looking for the outside help or agitation that the student was offering. Mm-hmm. Whereas if he was focused more with, I think what you were saying, like with the growing civil rights movement and the possibility in the new movement and the freedom struggle, he would have accepted her offer, or maybe even just entertained the conversation with her more.
Mm-hmm. And so, as I said to you in the thing that I sent, he in '64 he keeps coming back to that woman in his speeches and in his writings, and he says, if I had met her now, I would say this: we are doing these things. The Organization of Afro-American Unity is all black, but you can support us, and you can join other organizations that are part of this fight. In other words, we're in a movement together. So he does it 3 or 4 times in 1964, 1965, where he's actually talking about her. She came down. She was in earnest, and he doesn't say I blew her off, right? But he says, I often wish I had her address so I could write to her and say, well, you can join us. Right? So he changes. And in the film, there's a funny interaction where James Shabazz is being asked about these changes that Malcolm X is articulating. He's still over in Africa, but he's sending messages back to his lieutenants and to the newspapers. Shabazz says, or the reporter asked him, he's backtracked a little from the position that all white men are the devils, if he's saying this. And Shabazz says, I wouldn't say that he is. And the reporter interrupts him, in respect that. And Shabazz says, I wouldn't say that he has backtracked. One can make an adjustment in one's direction without it being backwards. When you say that he has backtracked, it seems though you imply you would prefer that he call white people devils and not to call them devils, that he's going in the wrong direction. So I see that interaction as the kind of Shabazz and Malcolm's people trying to find a way to articulate what obviously is a change, right? But to articulate it in a way that suggests some level of consistency in what Malcolm X is doing, right? And that's a hard, just think of what I just said. Is Malcolm X flip-flopping? Well, part of the answer to that would be, is it a more rigorous, does he come up with a more rigorous questioning of America once he's gotten rid of the white man is the devil thesis? Let's say, is it possible to be harder or more have a critique of racism in the United States that is more thoroughgoing than just the blanket statement, the white man is the devil? And I would argue that it is. In other words, that Malcolm X becomes more radical once he gets rid of the white man as the devil thesis than he is when he's in the Nation of Islam. The white man is the devil thesis means you don't do anything because the devil will slay you. The devil's not going to change. When you say, well, there are people who engage in devilish behavior or evil behavior or unjust conduct or racist conduct. He wants to put those people on the put a target on those people, on those institutions. That's an embrace of a radical critique of racist America. Or think about it this way. Is it hurtful to be called a devil? Is it hurtful to be told you are inherently my enemy? You are inherently evil. You are inherently racist. You are inherently my enemy. Is that? Do you think that would be hurtful to someone? As you're shaking your head, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost as if like whatever you do, like you will be my enemy. Like it doesn't matter what you say. Like there's no point in making progress. That's what I'm kind of like thinking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So someone else want to add something?
I also think it's kind of like you don't get second chances to like make a difference or even to.
I'm sorry. I was screwing around with my screen. Hold on a second. So who is talking?
I was saying that it's kind of like you don't get second chances to make a difference, and kind of like that young lady. While her ancestors may have done things, she's clearly trying to make a difference. So being told that you are the devil, kind of, I guess, would deter me away from even trying to make a difference at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, going off what James is saying, I think it also like stabs at the White Alliance members of like SNCC, for example. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like hearing like all those hurtful things from a prominent civil rights leader almost makes you feel like, I'm thinking from their point of view, that all your efforts are going to waste and won't be remembered or won't be, making a difference. So I think that by Malcolm X having those views that kind of contradict what a lot of other people think, it kind of puts Euro-Americans in a weird position, especially the ones that are trying to help and the ones that have helped in the past.
Yeah, I hear you, Mia. I think that's an astute statement. So I hear you. So let me say this. Part of the frustration that people in SNCC feel is that, as we talked about a week ago, right? The value of white life seems to be highlighted. The greater value of white life seems to be highlighted by the very struggle that they're going through, right? So it's Schwerner and Goodman who are why this is important, not Cheney, right? So that's frustrating, and I think that people in SNCC, and this includes non-African Americans in SNCC, seeing this dynamic unfold in the South, are saying, well, how do we raise the make it, prove the point, make it true, establish it as a general reality that black people matter, right? So it's not just black people. So let me put that in, because that'll be a part of where we're going ultimately. But back to this, I mean, I think that's absolutely right? So there ain't no doubt that this woman is hurt by Malcolm X saying this, right? There's no doubt about that, and Spike Lee is seeking to illustrate that. But the fact that Malcolm X comes back to this is important as well, and rethinks this situation. Yeah. So certainly it can hurt. Now if Malcolm X said to Bull Connor or Laurie Pritchett or George Wallace, you're the devil, you're inherently evil, you think that would hurt Bull Connor, Laurie Pritchett, George Wallace? Hannah, you immediately shook your head no. You want to say something about that?
Well, I don't think any of those figures are like comparable to the student advocating for helping Malcolm X and for helping with the cause. I feel like those are the individuals who are perpetuating the racism and the things that Malcolm X is trying to fight against. So I think if he said that to them, they would just turn their head and say that he was the devil and just move on. I don't think it would affect them.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I hear what you're saying, Hannah. You put her in a different category. You think she belongs in a different category than these obviously racist. How do we know they're racist? Well, because of what they do, right? How do we know they're racist? Because they are defenders of a system that we recognize to be racist, right? But you know, we're making a distinction. We're making a distinction between them, and the white man is a devil theory obviously doesn't make any distinction between them, right? But so Hannah, you go on to further say, and I think this needs to be put on the table. You say to Bull Connor, "You're the devil. You're inherently evil," right? And Hannah said they would just go on, you know, just turn away from it. It wouldn't affect them, and then you'd be right. But go on to do what, right? You say, "Well, nigger, let me introduce you to my police dog, to my German Shepherd, right? To Fang, to Fido, to Shotzi, right? You say I'm the devil, nigger? Hey, well, fuck you, right? In other words, it wouldn't. Hannah, you wanted to say something? Go on.
Yeah. Do you think that's why like you mentioned earlier, that the Nation of Islam, you think, is more like talk and they're less likely to go on with direct action? Do you think that's why, and that those two, like the reason they're not going into direct action is because they know that their theory of the white man is the devil, if they use that theory towards like high profile figures, it's just going to hurt them in the end?
I think that they're not about changing things, right? They're not about changing things. They're not about advocating the truth as a public matter, right? You know, part of the reason why the growth of the Nation of Islam is constrained is because it's you know, they get the message out. Come to the meeting, you'll hear the truth about the white man, right? This creates a kind of a limitation on their growth because it's kind of a word of mouth movement. We'll get the good stuff is when you come to the meeting. We close the doors, and then we'll tell you the truth.
A quick question, also.
Yes, Lexi.
Do you think that the defenders of the system also wouldn't really be affected by that because they're ego-driven in a sense?
What do you mean by ego? I think I understand what you mean, Lexi. Can you expand on what you're getting at?
Yeah, like, I mean, they're only going to see one way, and that, like, they're so far above any comments that the civil rights movement can make about them, that that's why it doesn't affect them. Like, they're above it almost.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I think so. That's a good and interesting question, and I could go on and on about that. But let me say this. I think that for the most part, it doesn't touch the Bull Connors, the Lori Pritchett's, the Ku Klux Klanners of the world, because they don't give a rat's ass about what this particular negra standing in front of them has to say. You know, and that's why I say this, right? That's why I say this. Yeah, well, fuck you, right? I don't care. You're irrelevant, and they're defending a system that says that black people need to be down at the bottom of the society and don't count, right? So there's a consistency. They have not just their own personal ideas, but they're defending institutions that are predicated on black people not counting, black people's voices and ideas not counting. So you see what I mean? So they might be personally racist, or they might, you know, have complicated ideas, but they're defending a tradition, a culture, and these institutions that are predicated on the black people being mere vessels or scapegoats, or mere vessels for what white people want, or mere cogs in an economic machine Their voices don't count. That's why we keep them out of the voting booth, and so on. And then there are people who are, personally racist and defend these institutions, and certainly among that group of people are there people who can change, right? So let me give you an example of that. George Wallace is a segregation yesterday, segregation today, segregation forever person in 1963. He runs for the presidency in 1968, and lo and behold, he does very well in the Wisconsin primary. He's situated in 1972 to do even better as a third-party candidate for the presidency, and then he's shot. Right? And he's paralyzed. And then a few years later, he runs for governor of Alabama again, and he campaigns among African Americans, and he apologizes to African Americans for his previous stand. He says, "I was wrong." Now, what is my point about this? My point about this is not, see, this is King's nonviolent passive resistance working out. This is this epiphany, right? Because it doesn't happen in 1960 or 1963 or 1965 or 1968. It happens over a long period of time. And you could look at the evolution of George Wallace from racist to person who appoints African Americans to his cabinet in Alabama in the 1980s. You could look at them and say, well, that's just him being a political pragmatist. It's just being realistic, and that would probably be true. But it certainly suggests that people can change. But it's not this kind of epiphany of change, and agape love blossoms in their minds. People can change.
I have a question about that.
So you see what I'm saying about that. So I didn't want to step me. Hold on one second. You see what I'm saying about that, right? That someone can be racist and defend a racist institution, and I'm suggesting, well, some of them can change. I don't think that's that difficult to understand, right? But why it is that in a particular moment, this kind of moral drama doesn't lead to this immediate conversion, that's understandable as well. Mia, yes.
So just going off you saying that people can change, and I just wanted you to just dive in a little deeper about what you're saying, because even if he can change, his effect is still the same at that time. So does that, him changing, does that kind of forgive him for that effect that he's had already? Because anyone who defends a racist system has to have contributed to that racist system, which is that's my thoughts on it. So by him having this epiphany and changing years later, do we think that changes the effect that he had to begin with? Like, is he viewed differently? I just want to understand that.
I didn't hear the last. Is he what differently?
Oh, is he just viewed differently? Like, has he been forgiven? Because we often see a lot of people make, even today, some people might defend racist institutions or things that kind of hint at racism, but then they change. I don't want to sound like I'm start stirring the pot or anything, but they kind of change, and now now the public forgives them. Do we think that's fair to assume?
Okay, there are a lot of questions in that. What I would say is, the concept, we evaluate, as historians, we evaluate the things people say and the things that they do, and we can evaluate the consequences of the things that they say and do in their time, right? George Wallace, he asks for the forgiveness of Black Alabamans, right, for what he did. That in some ways is an acknowledgement of the bad things, the negative consequences for the things he did. Now, I don't think that I don't look at it and say he did these things in 1980, and that causes me to erase the things he did in 1963. I'm just not that kind of person. what black Alabamans did. They voted. Some number of them voted for him, and I imagine some number of them said, "I'm never going to vote for this goddamn cracker," based on what he did before. And others saying, "Well, he has an agenda that I think is better than his Republican opponent, and so I'm voting for him." Right? But I wouldn't say any part of that entails erasing the harm that he did to African Americans when he was in a position of power. I mean, you know about this case it was in Houston or Dallas where a woman who was a police officer came home from work and there was a big black guy in her apartment, so she shot his ass dead. You know about this? Am I telling the story right? This big black guy was in her apartment, so she shot him dead. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Mia wants to raise a question about that. Yes, Mia?
No, sorry.
Did I tell the story wrong?
If I'm telling if this is the same...
I'm sure you are.
...as you're referring to, wasn't it his apartment and she confused the apartments?
Oh, that's right, Mia. Thank you for that. It wasn't in her apartment. It was in his apartment. She went into his apartment and she shot his black ass dead. Yes, absolutely. So I was joking. I know the facts of that thing, but I was just trying to make a point about it, right? About the absurdity of this situation, right? So she's convicted, and some members of his family forgave her, right? And the judge gave her, who was an African American woman, gave her a Bible, right? So there are people like that, right, who think that's forgiveness. But I don't think that in doing that, and I'm not that kind of person, right? But and part of what to me was just bizarre and in some ways offensive about it was this idea of going embracing. But for some people, I think for his family, members of his family, it wasn't negating her taking of their son's life, but it was that as their particular brand of Christianity, it was important to do, right? Okay, so thank you for that query, Mia, and for correcting me from telling the story of what happened to that brother Ron. But back to this. So if we can agree that saying to a group of people, you are inherently evil, you are the devil, we can understand that to be hurtful to some people and not hurtful to other people. Right? Then and what I'm suggesting, I think Malcolm X is recognizing that. Right? Let me suggest an analogy. Say we were on the eve of war with back in the day with the Soviet Union, right? And we say we got to get them first before they get us. So we're going to take our missiles and shoot them over the North Pole and blow them to kingdom come, right? So you got my scenario. Chanel, blink so I can see that you're not frozen. You got my scenario? So we got this great new missile, this new intercontinental ballistic missile that'll just is great. It's 500 times as powerful as the Hiroshima bomb. So push the button, right? Now the only problem with this bomb is that it sort of it drops it as it flies, it drops radioactive explosive material along its path, right? So by the time it gets to Moscow, it's just like a little rock, but it spreads devastation all over its path on the way to Moscow. So the real effect of it is it's just going to fuck up Canada, our allies in Canada, right? So you get what I'm saying? Well, how do we evaluate the efficacy of that weapon? You say, if it just bombs the crap out of our friends and allies, in Canada, and doesn't have much effect on our enemies in Moscow, is it in fact a good weapon? Yes? Is the white man is the devil theory something like that? That is to say, it hurts the people who self-consciously, in the case of this woman, want to help, see themselves as your allies in this struggle, and has no effect on your enemy, the Bull Connors, the George Wallaces of the world, then is it in fact a weapon at all? Yes? Is it in fact a weapon at all? Now, the fact of the matter is that as an organizing tool, the white man as the devil has its attraction. Right? For African Americans, for those who gathered into the Nation of Islam, for a broader audience of African Americans who want to see the situation clarified, who want to feel a kind of get a kind of bump in their sense of themselves, and they could say the white man dumps on us all the time. Well, the white man is the devil. You can see the psychological solace that comes from that. Yeah, they say they're better. We're better. We're superior to them. A kind of psychological balm on people. Yeah, I think that's absolutely the case. And that counts for something. But in terms of actually, and that's what the Nation of Islam is about this kind of psychological reorientation. But in terms of actually addressing the fundamental situation, the institutions of America that keep black people in check, of addressing the actual reality, the concrete reality of African American oppression, it doesn't do anything. It's not an offensive weapon. And so what I'm suggesting is that Malcolm X, this is a part of Malcolm X's trajectory. This is a part of the way in which he sees there are new possibilities. And it's not in a vacuum. Yes? It's not in a vacuum. In other words, this is not simply an academic matter. This is not simply an intellectual matter where he sat in a library, and it's not simply a spiritual matter. He went to Mecca and he saw this, but rather he is responding to the new reality presented by the unfolding of the freedom struggle. New facts lead to a new response on his part. Yes? They're not simply facts internal to the Islamic world, but they are the work that King and SNCC and the other people have done, the black people and the white people in the movement, in CORE and SNCC and SCLC, the NAACP, and so on. And what he's seen in the North, that woman who talks about her encounters with Malcolm X at the protest site, at the construction site. He's being moved by those people. To say these are circumstances that have a possibility within them that are not the circumstances of the pre-civil rights movement time. And so I have to change. Hold on one second. So he ends up in this position.
Farm, you'll end it.
You sit around and wait for the one who's in power to make up his mind that he should end it. We'll be waiting a long time. And in my opinion, young generation of whites, blacks, browns, whatever else there is, you're living at a time of extremism, a time of revolution, a time when there's got to be a change. People in power have misused it, and now there has to be a change, and a better world has to be built, and the only way it's going to be built is with extreme methods. And I, for one, will join in with anyone, I don't care what color you are, as long as you want to change this miserable condition that exists on this earth. Thank you.
I like me some Malcolm X. But that's a and so so there is this word that we've seen before, extremism, right? That he is embracing. There is this indictment of those in charge, right? But it's not this the white devil, right? It is those in charge. He is attacking the system. He is attacking the institutions. He is saying we need to have there is a possibility of reform. We need to organize politically. He's also saying he has this other organization, Muslim Mosque Inc., to promote the ideas of traditional Islam because he still believes in that. Right? He believes that African Americans need to reorient themselves religious as a spiritual, religious matter. He's talking about organizing rifle clubs for African Americans to defend themselves against racist attacks. He's talking about standing up to police brutality, a part of his agenda that will be picked up by the Black Panther Party. Right? He's talking about acting. He's talking about going on the offensive against the institutions of America that he considers to be morally bankrupt, practices that are oppressive and exploitative. He's talking about taking the fight to them. Now, my point about this is not to suggest that Malcolm X, if you just go back and cite what Malcolm X is saying at the end of his life, there is a formula that will bring about change. That's I don't think that's the case. Some people would argue that Malcolm X had a solution to the problem. If we just follow Malcolm X, we would there would be a revolution that would have taken place in the United States. There are people who even argue that there were excised chapters of the autobiography of Malcolm X that were deliberately taken out of the book because they provided a blueprint for a revolution. And I think this is not true. I think the significance of Malcolm X lies in the fact, rests in the fact that he came to a position and brought others to the position where they could see more clearly what they were up against. That people could then, he raised questions about the workings of America that clarified the not exclusively that the institutions of America were oppressive, but to get people to think about the consequences of this and what it would take for people to both free their minds and then set upon the task of changing these institutions. I think that's what people saw Malcolm X as being important, why they sought him out and saw him as being important. Not a blueprint for revolution, but a kind of reorientation of people's thinking that would then help them to see these institutions and the psychological consequences of racism in a more clear way. So questions about that? This statement from the Ballad or the Bullet speech. So Malcolm X is last project is to forge a militant wing of the Black freedom struggle. His death stymied his own efforts, but a considerable number of Americans, those in the movement as well as those out of it, as well as diverse Americans and diverse African Americans and non-African Americans, saw him as pointing in a fruitful direction. A part of this is his raising interesting questions about the significance of recent progress. So this is what I mean when I'm talking about him raising questions rather than having all the answers. Well, I'm one who doesn't believe in deluding myself. I'm not going to sit at your table and watch you eat with nothing on my plate and call myself a diner. Sitting at the table doesn't make you a diner unless you eat some of what's on that plate. Being here in America doesn't make you an American. Being born here in America doesn't make you an American. That's something that needs to be brought into existence. He has another analogy. If I've had a knife in my back for years and years, and then the knife is taken out of my back, don't expect me to be grateful for the fact that the knife is no longer in my back. Right? So raising a question, causing people to think about the question. The knife is out of the back. Hey, 2 cheers for that. But what about the hole in my back? Right? What about the hole in my back? What about those who have put the knife in my back? Right? And once you say it's not the white man, all white men are equally complicit in this system, equally guilty, equally evil, the devil, then you can start pointing the fingers at actual people and institutions who actually did things rather than this blanket thing, which makes it seem like some widow woman in northern Maine is equally as complicit in this system as Bull Connor, which is just an absurdity. What are the consequences of this, he asked. How can we go forward to rectify this system? That's a change, and it's a change that comes about as a result of his responding to events. So questions about that before we move on? Janelle, you all right? Blink. Thank you. Some people I know you're focused. The people the 8 of you the 7 of you I can see. I can see you're focusing, right? You're moving around, you're smiling sometimes. I believe that Chanel is focusing and concentrating and thinking hard. I absolutely believe this. But this is Chanel.
I'm very good at just being really still. Yeah, it's a thing I do, and I guess I'm doing it subconsciously. So I'm just gonna turn my camera off. No. I like it. No, absolutely not. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding with you. I appreciate that. I know you're thinking, but it's just in contrast, say to Andrew, who is just has a kind of chill effect that he has, and people are moving around, and so it's just fine. So I apologize. I'm trying to gather my thoughts while I'm going on and on about this. So it's good to see you, and if everyone turned their camera on, I would be happy, even if your hair is not combed. You're lying in bed. You clearly, say you're lying on your pillow. You can see your pillow in the screen. Your hair has clearly not been combed. You probably have your pajamas on, right? That's welcome too. So, and you also have just a great smile too. So that's very welcome. So, okay. So we talked after, some of us gathered after class, and we talked a little bit more about this. But I wanted to I sort of have made the argument, sort of as an aside throughout this, that the Nation of Islam killed Malcolm X, and they killed him for some good reason, that had to do with defending their interests. By good reason, I don't mean that it was just, but it was they had their reasons for this. Now, there are a lot of conspiracy theories about Malcolm X's assassination. People who argue that the government did it, or the CIA, elements within the government did it, and so on. And I think that those arguments are sustained. People believe them. Their belief in them are sustained by the fact that the government did a lot of shady things in this period, and people's trust in the government was dramatically diminished over the course of the 1960s. Also, there is the fact that I think there is solid evidence that the authorities in New York, in particular, were aware of a plot to kill Malcolm X and did nothing about it. And I think that is without question true. But that doesn't mean that the government that they inspired the assassination or caused it to happen, which I think they did not. So the argument that I would make about the assassination is, you can see in the film, in the film in particular, the Nation of Islam, who have the leadership of the Nation of Islam, who have relied and become dependent upon Malcolm X bringing these people into the nation, building up the Nation of Islam, and so he is their cash cow, right? He is the goose that lays the golden egg. But he's seeking to take the nation in a different direction. So we're talking in this 1962, 1963 period. And it's also the period, as you know from watching the film, in which Elijah Muhammad seems to be on death's door, right? So if he dies, if the old man dies, and Malcolm X takes over, Malcolm X wants to reorient the Nation of Islam into a militant wing of the freedom struggle. 1. 2. Malcolm X believes in the movement as a movement as opposed to as a for-profit scheme. And as you saw in the film, there are a lot of leaders in the Nation of Islam who are making bucks off of the charitable contributions of their membership. So in the film, where the guy says he wants to take the money lenders, chase the money lenders out of the temple, they're frightened of Malcolm X for that reason. If Elijah Muhammad dies, he would be the sort of natural successor to Elijah Muhammad. Then there's an added element to the Nation of Islam's seeing Malcolm as a dangerous threat. Elijah Muhammad, who supposedly is at death's door in 1963, has fathered 9 children with 5 of his, look at me, secretaries. Secretaries who have been brought into his employ, who are in the age range of 18, 19, 20. And part of what he has dictated to them is a sexual relationship which has resulted in 5 of them getting pregnant and having 9 children over the course of a relatively short time. Yes? You feel me? So, while he might have seemed frail and at death's door, he was a vigorous old goat at the same time. And so Malcolm X first hears about this, and he talks with Elijah Muhammad about it. He talks with Wallace Muhammad, who is Elijah Muhammad's son, who you saw in the film. And there is a concern among people like John Ali in the leadership of the Nation of Islam that they're going to use that information. Malcolm X and Wallace Muhammad are going to use that information to oust Elijah Muhammad. So the occasion for this tension within the Nation of Islam to the changes that Malcolm X is going through and his new way of thinking that he's going through, and then this fearfulness within the nation about what he might do if he takes over, that comes to a head with Malcolm X talking about the assassination of President Kennedy, December 1st, 1963. It's not clear if Malcolm X does this as a way of making a break, but certainly it is a kind of rebellion on his part from the dictates of Elijah Muhammad's leadership. It's also Malcolm X being Malcolm X. Mia, did you have a question? Okay, a question came up on the group chat.
So yeah, I like anything, but I just had a quick question that I kind of missed, and I didn't want to, speak it out into the chat, but kind of.
Now you have to. Go ahead.
Now I have no choice. So what did he do with Elijah Muhammad? I'm sorry, that's like backtracking a good 3 minutes. I'm sorry.
What did Elijah Muhammad do?
What did Malcolm X do to Elijah Muhammad? Is that not what we were getting at? I missed.
So mute yourself, and I'll see if I can answer it. So what's happening in 63 into 64 is not clear, but there's clearly people who are moving around and trying to position themselves in the event that Elijah Muhammad dies, and then there's the Malcolm X Wallace Muhammad forces who are positioning themselves to possibly take over and reorient the Nation of Islam into a fighting organization. Right? All of that it's not clearly manifested. Right? So even in 1964, Malcolm X is giving signs that he would want to rejoin the Nation of Islam. Right? So there's that. Right? It's unclear. But the point that I had gotten to was that clearly he is breaking discipline when he talks about King. And what I was saying about this is on the one hand, that's Malcolm X being Malcolm X, right? I'm asked a question, my response is to make it plain. This is the reality of the situation. And you see he's not using the devil imagery in this. He's not talking about something inherent to President Kennedy or inherent to white America. He's saying it has done these things. It has promoted violence domestically and internationally. It has brought about the assassination of anti-colonial leaders in Africa and Asia. This is the consequence of the violence that America has promoted. Right? Let's say Malcolm X's response is to tell the truth as he sees it in the thing. He's right to some extent in the sense that why is it that Lee Harvey Oswald killed President Kennedy? He killed President Kennedy because he was opposed to American policy in relationship to Cuba. Right. So I also don't believe in the conspiracy theory involving the Kennedy assassination. There are some conspiracy theories I'm interested in and might believe in, and there's certainly some conspiracies. Malcolm X was killed by a conspiracy, but it was a conspiracy within the Nation of Islam. But back to December 1st, 1963, Malcolm X says, and he's right about that, right? That's why, that doesn't make it right, But he's right. This is why President Kennedy was murdered by the person who murdered him.
I have a question.
That not just contradicts Elijah Muhammad's orders. It contradicts the a part of the philosophy of the Nation of Islam, which is don't tell the truth out in public, because there'll be negative consequences for us. Chanel, yes.
So I was kind of just searching on the internet, and I came across Elijah Muhammad's biography on the Nation of Islam's website, and they mention Malcolm X very briefly and kind of minimize his importance to the organization. And then when it comes to his assassination, they were there's evidence in the Freedom of Information Act that the U.S. government played a role in his assassination, and they're trying to remove themselves from being responsible in this, and they're like, oh, he chose to separate from the organization opposed to him being pretty much kicked out.
Well, I would say in terms of the latter thing, it's a sort of a mixed bag whether he's kicked out or he leaves. I mean, ultimately he talks about it in terms of, that's why I'm leaving the Nation of Islam. But in the months before that, there's a lot of he gives signs that he would want to be welcomed back in, right? So there's that. But to the larger point, right? They have to do that. They have to point in these directions away from them. But you see in the film them saying why it is that they killed him. He was a traitor. He was a hypocrite, right? He sought to undermine. We saw him as these, when they're talking in even his brothers talking about he is mentally ill. He is an advocate of violence, right? Now what I'm saying is underlying that is the kind of statement made by Joseph X in the film. He used to give me chills and now he doesn't. He's talking politics. Then Malcolm X's brother Filbert says, that's not what we were about. We weren't about the politics, which is to say we weren't about changing the society. We were about saving souls. And then you have Joseph X coming back, and he says, he's asked, and this is the only time in the film where you hear the interviewer's voice, right? And she says to him, do you know who killed Malcolm X? And he says, I don't know. He talked violence. And then his life was taken by violence. He knows. So there is a documentary series, Who Killed Malcolm X? It's just come out on Netflix, and it is an exploration of these questions. And it's not very smart exploration of these questions. But one of the things it's quite clear about is that all of the people who were involved, the 3 men were convicted of this, 2 of whom were innocent, 1 of whom was guilty. And they identify the person who wielded the shotgun, who actually did the most damage to Malcolm X, and he was a guy who was living in Newark, New Jersey, for years after this, and not all the time in Newark, because he went to prison for an armed robbery in which he wielded a sawed-off shotgun, just like the one he used when he killed Malcolm X, and he was a member in good standing of the Newark mosque of the Nation of Islam. So it's quite clear. So thank you for that, Chanel. Okay, so there might be some more questions, and certainly I could go on and on about this, but we didn't get to all that we wanted to talk about the Southern story. So we're going to try and just do the reading, watch the films for next time, and we'll talk about the Southern version of the rise of the Black Panther in the context of the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, and then the other more famous Black Panther coming to the fore in California. I think that in terms of the reading for next time, the most important thing, and the thing that I'd like to talk about, would be the Eldridge Cleaver piece, "The Courage to Kill," piece that I sent you. Yes. So I think you have that. And what we're looking for in that is the kind of how the Panthers carry themselves, and I think Cleaver is very good on the way in which the Panther persona is very attractive to people in this period, in part because of the scenes of the civil rights movement that people have watched of black people getting beaten up and black and white protesters being beaten up and so on. So give a good attention to that and think about, let that the scenario, the stories that Cleaver tells, see them as a kind of a movie, see them enacted in the movie of your mind, and that will be helpful. So there's meeting the Panthers, and there's this encounter with the police when they're guarding Malcolm X's widow, Betty Shabazz. Likewise, in terms of the film that we were supposed to talk to today, where King and Snick are picking up the Meredith March after Meredith, undertakes this march against fear, right? You have nothing to fear but fear itself, right? And then he gets shot, right? Which might suggest that you have more than just fear to fear. And so they pick up the march against fear. Pay close attention to the dynamics of the march, and particularly when King and Carmichael are confronted by the police, and Carmichael lurches forward, and run that scene a couple times and see what is motivating Stokely Carmichael to do what he did. And then later on, when they are encamped in a school playground and the police attack them, pay close attention to what King says at that time, and the leadership that he seeks to provide for the movement in that time. And then listen carefully when you may have seen this. If you have, go back and take another look at it. When they are marching out, it's nighttime and there's tear gas everywhere, and you can still hear the thump of people getting beaten, and they're singing "We Shall Overcome" in an ironic way. I want those images to be close in your mind when we're in class on Tuesday, and then we'll take it up then. So we got not a lot of time to go, but we'll do the best we can. Okay. So good. And if you want to stay around to talk some more, you're welcome to do that. So, but otherwise, so I'll be here. But otherwise, be safe. Let some sunshine on you, because that's good. That's good for your physical health and for your soul health. So, okay. All right. Thumbs up.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. My man. How you doing?
Good, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Been over here. A quick question about can you talk more about international prominence, I guess? Yeah. What impact could that have had he survived longer? Or what impact did it have while he was still alive?
Yeah.
I remember he said he just mentioned it wasn't a civil rights issue, but it was a human rights issue, and bringing in
bringing in the post-colonial nations of Africa and Asia to enlist their support in the African American struggle.
Yeah.
So had you heard about that idea, making it not civil rights but human rights? Had you heard of it before this class? Probably not. I mean, you would
from someone else or from Malcolm X?
From
someone else. No.
Yeah. So there's some people who see a lot of promise in that, right? You say you get the big, powerful UN to come in, and minimally that would expose American practices to the world. And so in that way in which you have, exposure is seen as a way of rallying people to your side, right? That might be true. I don't see the same potential in this. Malcolm X is doing something. W.B. Du Bois and the Black Left tried to do something similar to this back in the 1940s and 1950s. The fundamental problem with it is, Andrew, who is more powerful, the United States or the UN? Right? And so there's a notion that, the UN is very powerful. You can say, well, yeah, you bring that shit on, right? What you gonna do? You're gonna come and my ass would be fuck you, come on, bring that shit on. Bring your blue uniforms and white helmets. Bring that shit on, right? I'm a fucking American. Fuck you. I'm gonna stop. Let me stop the recording. I'm stopping recording just because it's actually not useful. Hold on a second.